What's good? It's your boy Fanon. I'm going to do a post-fight reaction to Callum Smith versus George Groves for the 168 pound World Boxing Super Series title and the WBA Super Middleweight Championship. Excellent fight. My my fighter came through at the end. Callum Smith is the cat that I had winning the tournament. I was between Callum Smith and Chris Eubank, but Chris Eubank showed me that he wasn't, fundamentally, he's got a lot to be desired. He did fight on the undercard of this fight, and once again, man, dude showed me why there's a lot of people that don't like Chris Eubank. But Callum Smith, I like this dude. I think that he's a very talented fighter, comes from a fighting family. So let me go through the fight and what I think is going to happen in the 168-pound division after that. Before I do so, though, thank you, subscribers, for tuning into the channel. Also, if you're not subscribed, please accept my invitation to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that we can talk about boxing, whether you like what I have to say or whether you don't like what I have to say. I'm going to share my opinion, and it'll be a fun conversation either way. Also, thank you to everybody that supports the channel on Super Chat, Venmo, and Patreon. And also watch the ads in the videos. And also remember, we're going to do a Super Chat challenge. 78 Sports TV's come back on his live stream Monday, October 7th. So please attend that live stream and see if anybody can beat me in my tie me in my Super Chat donations for 78 Sports TV. Now, on to this fight. Callum Smith is I had him beating George Groves. I was watching this fight. George Groves is a tricky person, man. First of all, much respect to George Groves. George Groves tried to win this fight with some of the best smoke and mirrors that I've seen in a while. His feints, his hand feints, his head feints, his jab, his tripling up the jab. That's what he tried to win the fight with. And he actually caused Callum Smith a lot of issues during the I think this was a 7th round knockout. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But just trying to keep the bigger, younger, fresher man at bay. Tried to keep the younger, bigger, stronger, fresher man at bay, and it just didn't work. But I do think, man, that I actually have even more. These last 2 fights that I've watched George Groves fight, I have more respect for him than I did before I saw him fight. I mean, before these last 2 fights. And the earlier fights that I saw, I just really wasn't that impressed with him. I don't think he's a tremendous talent, like a physical talent, but he performs to the absolute best of his ability, and I respect him for that. Callum Smith, though, was tall enough and long enough to stay outside of George Groves' jab, which is obviously the best part of his game, and to keep him right in a range where, he could try to time him with straight right hands. In the first round, I was looking at the punches being thrown, the way that George Groves, because if you are not a super athlete in boxing, you need to keep your left hand up, man. Okay? If you are not a big time athlete, you need this Roy Jones stance for cats that are not ultra quick. I mean, ultra quick, man, is a recipe for disaster. So I was looking at, even though it was eventually, I do believe, a left hook that got George Groves, but it was because he was looking for that right hand that was coming straight down the pipe and hurting him several times. Is the reason why he eventually got caught with that left hook. And then he got, had some uppercuts and stuff, pretty much finish him off. But the thing that really got him was that he was so worried about that straight right hand, which had clipped him time and time again through that fight, that, he wound up getting caught with a left hook. And when you keep your hands that low, I would say the same thing for Chris Eubank too. Chris Eubank is a strong dude. He's a good athlete, but he's not that fast. He's not Roy Jones Jr. fast. He's not. And Floyd switches between that Philly shell and a hide guard. But if you are not an ultra athlete, you need to fight just like Callum Smith was fighting, with both hands by your ears, and try in that high guard, unless you get out of range and lower your guard. I don't know what, but that particular left hand, your left hand down by your knee, I was like, oh my God, he's going to get blasted with a right hand. And he did, time and time again. Now he would like I said, I had a lot of respect for George Groves, because he would jab up, jabs to the body. He would pump fake the jab, fake the jab. His feints, feint the jab, fake the jab, throw one, two, three. His rhythm, he was really keeping that, keeping Callum Smith off balance with his rhythm. But eventually, the bigger, younger, stronger dude set that left hook up after bombing him with right hand, maybe 2, 3, right hands in around, enough to hurt him. He wobbled him. I do believe Callum Smith wobbled him in the right hand. In the second round, or maybe it was the third round, with a straight right hand. But that really did get his attention, and he had to watch for that. And eventually, round 7, boom, that left hook landed on his ear, and it was lights out, baby. So, congratulations to Callum Smith. Now we're walking into a situation where, it's going to be funny business going on here in the 168-pound division. We've got 4 champions in the 168-pound division. The WBC champion, who is David Benavidez. The WBA super champion is Callum Smith. The IBF champion is Jose Uzcategui and Uzcategui, Jose Uzcategui. And the WBO champion at 168 pounds. Who is the 168? Oh, is Gilberto Ramirez. Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez is the WBO champion. So we got 4 champions. Now, is there going to be any unification? I doubt, more than any other weight division, I doubt that there's unification that takes place at 168 pounds for, in boxing. I do believe you have 4 champions with 4 different promoters. Am I right? Let me go through these again. You have Zurdo Ramirez, who's with Top Rank. You have Uzcategui, who has fought with the PBC before, but I also know that I can't remember what the name of his promoter, but I also know he's fought with the PBC before. Callum Smith is with Matchroom, and David Benavidez tried to hop out of Matchroom, out of the PBC, and go to Top Rank, but he got thrown back to Top Rank when his promoter filed that lawsuit. So I just don't know how quickly we're going to see any type of unification going on for that. I would suspect that Callum Smith didn't want to come to Detroit to fight Andre Durrell, if I do remember, not to Detroit, but to Michigan. I remember that they were supposed to fight, but Callum Smith didn't want to do that because he thought that he would have home court advantage or something like that. So it seems like, at least at the front, without looking at all his record, all his fights to see if he had actually come to the United States before, I think it's going to get tough for Eddie Hearn to match him up with this guy, Uzcategui or David Benavidez. I guess there's a chance between he and Gilberto Ramirez. I think Callum Smith but as far as parity goes at 160 pounds, there's a lot of parity in the 168-pound division, because I think any one of those guys, it's hard for me to press to see who I think the best out of those guys are. I think that any one of those guys have a chance to beat any of the other guys, including Jose Uzcategui. I think Uzcategui, Uskatagi is a big, heavy hitter, man, but he's still, man, a guy like Callum Smith who throws punches, straight down the middle, who's very, tight defensively, who's got, good hands on him. I think he's got the ability to upset Jose Uskatagi. I would favor Uskatagi. Gilberto Ramirez, I used to think that he was something that's, was a very good fighter, but he hasn't looked very good in the last several of his fights. I think he's more athletic than Uskatagi or Callum Smith, but I don't know who would win out of that. And of course, the last is David Benavidez, and since he got busted, with powder in his nose, man, you never know what's going to go on with that dude, man. I think that he's probably the most talented out of them. But then you also have, guys like Caleb Plant, who's at 168 pounds, who's a very, very gifted fighter. So man, it's a lot of parity at 168 pounds. I'm hopefully these guys can get together and unify and they can get an undisputed champion at 168. But just with the way that the politics and that stuff looks at 168, I think that's going to be a really, really rough road, man. But congratulations to Callum Smith. George Groves, hey man, I'm glad that he got an opportunity to get, it was a rough road for him to get his belt. He won his belt, he defended his belt. And now we got to hand it over to the younger, bigger, fresher fighter in Callum Smith. And it is what it is. It was a good fight, and I enjoyed it. And with that, I'm out. Peace.